Hey guys, it has been a while since we've covered any of the Dark Horse Alien series comic books. The last one I covered, and possibly my favorite one, was Aliens Genocide. After going through the comments on that video, I was wondering which Aliens comics you guys wanted me to cover next. Well, your most common answer was easily Aliens Labyrinth. When I went back and looked through my Aliens comics, I was surprised to see that I did own all 4 issues of it, but I don't remember reading it, just kind of browsing through it quickly when I first bought it. Because of this, I took the chance to finally go back and read through it, and now I fully understand why it is one of the most popular Aliens comics out there. This story is amazing. Jim Woodring did a great job with the script. Killian Plunkett did an amazing job with the art. Even though the Aliens universes are already known for their darker storytelling, there are some really dark points to Aliens Labyrinth, and I really think you guys are going to enjoy this one. So let's not waste any more time and jump right into it. We begin our story with a man named Colonel Dr. Crespi of the Colonial Marines. He is just waking up from hypersleep, and the ship he is in is about to dock up with a space station called the Anomalata. Shortly after waking, he receives a message from his superiors stating that he is authorized to use force if necessary to take over command of this space station. We then pick back up with Dr. Crespi as he meets up with McGinnis in the dining area. The two of them are having a discussion about a past injury that McGinnis had suffered and about how her recovery is going well. Crespi then wonders why McGinnis volunteered for this tour to go check out the Anomalata, and her only response is, "That's a good question." Before he can dig any deeper into this, there's an announcement over the intercom asking Dr. Crespi to meet up on the upper bridge. It's here where we're introduced to Admiral Thames. He always seems to have a sour look or a smirk on his face. He reminds me of that older, beleaguered businessman who's already seen all the ins and outs of his job and just chooses to do things his own way. If they were trying to make him an unlikable character, they sure succeeded on the first page he appears on. Dr. Crespi's mission here on the Anomalata is to take over control from Colonel Dr. Church. When he presses the Admiral from the station about working with the Doctor, the only response he gets back is that nothing is carved in stone. At first, the Admiral tries to distract the Doctor by offering him a relaxing time in their lounge, or perhaps he can even go spend time with one of the ladies on board. The Doctor just keeps pressing the Admiral that he doesn't need to relax and that he has to meet up with Dr. Church as soon as possible. After all this back and forth, the Admiral simply smirks and says, "Oh well, request denied." Crespi is furious and says that he'll pull rank if he has to and go above the Admiral, to which the Admiral simply laughs and responds, "My golly, a tough guy?" He then tells Crespi that he'll discuss this with Church and leaves it at that. You can already get a sense that this ship is working on its own and that they don't have to answer to anyone. Eventually, an intercom message pages Dr. Crespi to meet up with Dr. Church. Now here we finally get to meet up with Dr. Church. The Doctor explains to Crespi that he doesn't need any help and that he even tried to stop the higher-ups from transferring help over to the space station. Church then explains that he's even downsized his own work and is mostly dealing with the spaceborne virus type stuff. When Dr. Crespi asked Church about one of his viruses that ended up pushing Colonel Dr. Lennox's brain out the back of his head, Church responds by saying that viruses are tiny little things and that he's not responsible for that incident. When Dr. Crespi finally pushes Church, telling him he can bring him up on a board of review, we get to see the meaner side to Church. He tells Dr. Crespi that he's out of his league, and that him being sent to this station after him is like a caveman throwing a dog into a pond to fetch their own reflection. Church then decides to show Crespi the facilities and let him take a look around, perhaps just to try to calm his fears about what's going on the space station. They eventually come into a room with a large containment cell built into the floor with tall walls and a viewing platform from above. Down inside the room sits an alien warrior, huddled up in a corner. Church explains that there's a force field to keep the alien down in the pit and that the walls are made of an acid neutralizing alloy. When Crespi questions Church about this facility and how it's using over half of the resources for the ship, Church simply laughs and says that it's actually more than that. At this point, Crespi is wondering what kind of angle Dr. Church is working. He's giving him information that would do nothing but help him get this place shut down. And he says it all with a smirk on his face at the same time. It's like he knows something that is big enough to keep him doing whatever he wants to do. We then see the doctor hit a switch that shocks the huddled up alien, causing it to stand up and shriek in pain. When Crespi says, "Why'd you do that?" Church explains that he has to do this every once in a while to keep the alien from going into a dormant state. To me, this is one of the most fascinating parts about Aliens Labyrinth and why I love the comics and the extended universe stuff to the Aliens franchise so much. I know that some people include the comics in their canon with the Alien movies and some don't. I myself put the comics in an alternate universe of sort, but that's the great thing about canon. You can give and take what you like and what fits you best. Regardless of where you stand on Aliens canon, the comics offer a lot of information that we don't get in the movies. In Labyrinth, we get a ton of background on the aliens and how they act when they're separated from their hive. Now getting back to the conversation with the two doctors, Crespi tells Church that he's had a run-in with the aliens before and that he wouldn't mind shocking the hell out of this alien. Next up, Church opens a door that allows the alien to leave the room into a corridor. Right away, Crespi speaks up and says that, hey, there's a man in that corridor. Church simply answers back that the aliens don't have eyes, so they can't be fooled by holograms. He then says not to worry, he's taken every safety precaution that he can, and that he can shock the alien and stop it in its tracks at any time. We then see the alien enter this hallway containing an armed soldier and a dead pig. Church asks the doctor what he thinks the alien will choose to attack in this situation, explaining that they know that the aliens love to eat pig meat. Crespi thinks the alien will eat the pig and then attack the man, but he is wrong. We find out here that the alien's drive to eliminate threats overpowers its own hunger, causing the alien to always attack a threat first. Church says that he believed that this is because that the aliens are a hive species and that they always think of the group before thinking of themselves. We then move on to the next test. The alien is offered an open hallway with the odds of escape or a live pig to feed on. We see here that the alien doesn't only just attack the pig and ignore the exit, but it destroys the pig, ripping it to shreds, looking like it's enjoying what it's doing. Church responds by saying that he can't let the thing eat too much because if the alien gorges itself, it could die in this weakened condition. Another nice group of facts that we didn't have from the normal Aliens universe. The alien is now presented with another test, in which it's confronted with two soldiers, with only one being armed. The alien attacks the armed soldier trying to take out any threats. Church says that the hundreds of tests with dozens of aliens have always turned out this way. They always attack the threat first. We move on to our last and final test where the alien is presented with two unarmed men in a hallway. One man is sober and quite scared, while the other guy is on a drug called Fighter, F-I-T-R. It's a telepathine that induces a sense of invulnerability and increased mental strength in the user. The alien goes to attack the scared man first, but then it makes a quick pause like it was thinking of changing its decision before Church could step in and electrocute it so that neither of the men were killed. Church then explains that the aliens communicate telepathically. They can sense fear in other creatures. He then explains that the aliens can see the minds of men, but they don't understand what they see. He also explains that the man that was on the drug was willing the alien to stop its attack, and it worked, if not only for a moment. He then states that if a weakened alien can have its actions changed by a human mind under a drug state, that it might be possible to control aliens telepathically. Church notices that Crespi is not only starting to believe him, but that he thinks that his work is worthy. So Church lets Crespi know that he can upgrade the doctor's security level so he can have access to other areas in the station. Crespi then asks Church how many crew members have died during your course of research. Church simply keeps his cool and says, well, it depends on who you ask. When Crespi says, I'm asking you, Church. Church just responds with a stern look and says, none. I just love the back and forth with these two guys. Church is obviously an evil guy, and he's hiding something that is very obvious. But he keeps showing flashes of a genius doctor that may not be altogether evil. Maybe he's just too swept up in his work, and he's trying to accomplish such amazing work that he'll go through anything to make it happen. We then get an interruption when a medtech enters the room, asking if one of the alien specimens had been transferred. Church responds, no, and now we have the inevitable, an alien loose in the area. The doctor keeps his cool and just says, we'll find him on the camera, and then we'll return it back to its holding area. Once they get the cameras, they find out that Mortensen, one of the techs, is in an area that the alien is in. Church knows that the alien is right around the corner from Mortensen, so he comes up with a great plan, using the knowledge he's learned from these aliens. He knows that if Mortensen knows about the alien, that the guy's gonna shit his pants and freak out. The alien will sense this and kill him immediately as they feed on fear telepathically. Because of this, Church decides to tell Mortensen that he has to leave the room now, and he has no time to do it, but he does not tell Mortensen that his life is threatened, knowing that this will affect Mortensen's state of mind. This works, and Mortensen is able to get out of the room and shut the door right as the alien is approaching. We then see Admiral Thaves, and he's looking at a monitor with Mortensen on screen. The Admiral is furious, asking Mortensen what the hell he's doing in that area. Mortensen says he was changing the filters in the decontamination suits when the Admiral asks him, on whose authority? Unfortunately for Mortensen, the alien has now circled back and entered the room from another entrance and is now perched right behind him. Church can see this on screen and screams to Mortensen to get the hell out of there, but it's obviously too late. The alien bends down from the ceiling and pushes its inner jaw through the back of Mortensen's head, causing it to explode all over the monitor. Church then orders his soldiers to cordon off the sector and reconfine the alien. He then tells Crespi that he'll meet him in the lab in 12 hours and heads off. Dr. Crespi returns back to his room where he's met up by McGinnis. The two begin to privately talk about what's going on the Anomalata, both agreeing that there are bigger things at work here. McGinnis states that the tracking device that was on that alien had been cut off with a blade, not by the alien. She even found it in the break room with no alien residue on it. She then continues to say that in the generator room, they found a substance smeared on the pipes where the alien was hiding, and it smelled like pheromones. She even goes on to tell Crespi that the alien's kennel door lock was opened by someone on the station as well. The doctor knows that McGinnis is a tech, so he asks her to do more digging and find out what she can. This is when we see the camera pan out from their conversation, only to see Dr. Church watching this entire conversation on his private monitor. So right here is where we end the first issue, but we're going to go ahead and cover issue 1 and 2 in this video, so let's just pick right back up with the second issue. We join back up and we can hear someone giving a speech about how two different men can be much different than two animals of two totally different species. If the two men would ever just sit and compare their life stories, they'd find out they had a lot more in common than they thought. We then come to find out that the person talking is Dr. Church, and he is saying last words for Mortensen. The Admiral comes in and confronts the doctor, explaining that Mortensen was an organ donor and that they need to keep his body. Church goes on and tries to explain, but the Admiral cuts him off before he can finish. As seen from before, the Admiral's kind of an asshole. He really doesn't care if rules are followed. He just likes to enter rooms once in a while and assert his position to tell people what to do. In the end, the Admiral doesn't care and allows Church to do whatever he wants with Mortensen's body. The doctor explains that he'll take care of the body and lets everybody else get back to what they were doing. I would say though that it's fairly obvious by the look on Church's face here that he doesn't intend to get rid of this body after all. I would bet that he's got some kind of experiment planned for Mortensen's corpse. We pick back up with Dr. Crespi and McGinnis, and they're having another conversation. She now tells Crespi that there really was a reason why she had volunteered for this mission. As it turns out, David Lennox was her fiance, and that he ended up working with Church for 6 years at the time of their meeting. She explains that David had tried to get himself transferred over and over again, but he could never get the orders to go through. Lennox even tried sending a coded message to McGinnis, but she was unable to decipher the message. Then McGinnis said that she is later informed that Lennox ends up dying of a heart attack on board the Anomalata. She even says that afterwards her apartment was burglarized and that everything Lennox had sent her was taken, even their love letters. This is why she is here. She needs to find out what happened to her fiance. Crespi explains that Lennox was stupid to send the coded information and that McGinnis being here is a huge mistake. Before the doctor though can get upset at McGinnis, she reminds him that she's doing the spying work for him around the station. She tells him that she still hasn't found the order that released the alien that killed Mortensen, but she finds out that each and every crew member's medical records have been altered, and that there have been 34 deaths on this station in just the last 3 years, and they've all been covered up. The doctor can barely believe her, explaining that would be 11 deaths a year in just the last 3 years. Where would all these new people be coming from to repopulate this small station? This is when McGinnis fills him in that there have been 3 unscheduled shuttles that have arrived at the station. Whatever is going on in this godforsaken space station, it appears that the higher-ups either support it or just look the other way. She then explains that she'll keep on researching, and Crespi heads out of the room on his way to the weight room to work out. While working out, he hears a loud screeching noise in the hallway, so he grabs his gun and heads outside, only to find Dr. Church has some crazy kind of harness set up on an alien, and the crazy bastard is out walking it through the hallways like it's some kind of pet dog. Everyone on the station is freaking out and losing their mind, and they have every right to. It's one thing to perform studies and research on the aliens, it's another thing to parade them around like they're some kind of domesticated pet. We even come to find out the Church is calling this alien Trixie, even calling it a bad doggy for scaring the nice lady in the hallway. He even jokingly tells the alien to stop pausing at every hydrant. Crespi seems to be the only guy on board with the balls to address Church and ask him what the hell he's doing. Crespi then starts to list off how many laws are being broken right now when Church asks him if anyone has appreciated his demonstration. He explains that he was trying to make a point. The point being, these creatures are completely under his control and offer no threat. Everyone clears the hallways and just heads back to their rooms. We then pick up with Dr. Crespi, who's returned to his room and is lying in his bed, but he's still holding on to that weapon, especially after that nonsense that just happened in the hallways. Suddenly, he hears Dr. Church come over his intercom. He explains that the alien is dying and asks Crespi if he wants to be on hand to see it. So we now pick up with the 2 doctors on the catwalk over the room where the alien is being held. We get a little more information from the expanded universe on the aliens that we aren't privy to in the movies. Church explains that the aliens die when they're separated from their groups. They just don't do well in captivity. This kind of reminds me of a great white shark. Alpha predators like these rarely survive very long when they're being held in captivity. Perhaps we're seeing the same thing here in the alien that we see in the shark. Once the alien does finally pass away and die, Church and the other scientists start to perform an autopsy on the creature. They are able to drain its body acids and replace them with a neutralizing agent. Dr. Church then points to an organ in the alien skull and says that this is his goal, telling Crespi that this is the area that interests him the most. He explains that it is his belief that the alien has a psychic receiver. He believes that this allows the alien to not only receive brainwaves, but it would also allow the alien to assess another animal's physical characteristic. They even deduce that this is why electromagnetic fields can affect the alien, because they can cause interference with this organ and make it to not function correctly. They even go on to explain that this area of the brain shrinks on an alien in captivity, especially when compared to that of more healthy specimens. This could even explain how the experiment with the drugged up Marines was able to affect this alien's behavior. This is when Dr. Crespi realizes if they're able to synthetically reproduce the chemicals that have been created by the alien, then they may be able to use these to control the aliens. Immediately he begins to see just how important Church's work with the aliens could be. Church then asks Crespi if he no longer considers this to be an illegal operation, when Crespi says this work is so important it doesn't matter anymore. While the two doctors probe deeper into what they believe is the brain of the alien, we pick back up with McGinnis. As it turns out, she is watching both doctors from a camera she was able to secretly set up. She waits for the two to finish and then finds Crespi in order to fill him in on some new information that she has learned about Church. Before she can do this though, Crespi starts going off about all the important work that Church is doing. It's obvious that Church was able to use his conniving personality and his work on the aliens to get Crespi to be on his side. The two of them end up having some back and forth arguing, with Crespi siding with Church until McGinnis is able to show Crespi there is a hidden room on board this space station that is using more power than the room they just came across. There is obviously another hidden operation on board the station, something that Church doesn't want anyone else to know about. Crespi convinces McGinnis to keep on pressing to see if she can find out more about this hidden area. This is when she states that she's not able to enter the area without getting her hands on codes that Church has. Crespi says he can use his newfound clearance and get these codes. We pick up with Dr. Crespi as he enters this area looking for the codes, only to be attacked by an alien. He is barely able to hold the alien off, using an aerosol can and a spark so that he can create a small torch to fend off the creature's attack. He would have been dead in under a minute if he wasn't so lucky that a couple of technicians entered the room and were able to shock the alien and put it down. Crespi then charges out of the room to confront McGinnis, thinking that she sent him in there so he could be killed by this alien. The two of them get into a heated argument and fight until she is able to convince him that she had no knowledge of the alien. The good part though is Crespi was still able to get the key code that they needed. The two of them are then able to get into this secret area. Once inside, they find out that they are in the middle of a room of horrors. This room can only remind me of the room in Alien Resurrection where they were growing the failed Ripley clones. We see headless bodies, distorted and bloated, attached to hoses and monitoring systems. On the other side of the room, we see large water tanks containing masses of flesh that only slightly resemble human beings. The two are disgusted and enraged at the same time as they begin to look through the room. Crespi even comes across a tube that contains the body of Mortensen. Just as expected, Church kept this body for experimentation. It is then that McGinnis lets out a loud scream because she has just found David Lennox. We see a large machine on the wall with the head of Lennox sticking out of it. The top of his head is missing and there's some kind of helmet with screws attached instead. Just what kind of sick and twisted stuff is Church doing here? And that, my friends, is where we're going to end this episode. We covered issues 1 and 2 and there's still 2 more issues left to Labyrinth. I just want to say that I'm so glad that you guys suggested Labyrinth as the next series. I have had so much fun rereading this, and I hope you guys are enjoying hearing the story. I've got to say, Dr. Church is one sick bastard, and I cannot wait to see what happens with this guy. I would also highly recommend that if you haven't read this story yet, you should definitely read it for yourself. There's a couple ways to do that. You can get the 4-issue comics of Labyrinth 1, 2, 3, and 4. There's also a trade paperback containing all 4 issues. And then we also have the Aliens Omnibus books, which contain all of the stories. So if you want to pick this up for yourself, I highly recommend you check online or at your local comic store and pick them up. Otherwise, guys, I just want to say thanks so much for watching. I appreciate all your support for the channel. If you liked the video, if you could leave a like, it helps out so much. And if you haven't subscribed yet, why not subscribe for all the future alien content to come? Take care, guys, and hopefully I'll see you back here for part 2.